Let me tell you something most people never see coming. The very gift that makes you special can also become the weight that breaks you. If you've ever felt everything too deeply, if you've ever carried emotions that didn't even belong to you, then you already know what I'm talking about. This is the hidden burden of being an empath. It's beautiful to feel so much, to connect so deeply, but there's also a darker truth behind it, a truth most people don't understand, and that's what we're about to explore. Let's go deeper into the heart of the empath. An empath feels life in high definition. They don't just hear words, they taste their weight. They don't just see faces, they read what hides behind the smile. It sounds like a superpower, and in many ways it is. But imagine living in a world where every laugh, every sigh, every unspoken pain is amplified inside you. Psychologists describe empaths as people with heightened sensitivity to emotional signals. You become a mirror for everyone else's wounds, and slowly, you forget which feelings are yours and which ones you've borrowed. Science even shows that many empaths have stronger mirror neurons, those tiny brain cells that help us resonate with others' experiences. This is why empaths can walk into a room and instantly sense tension, or why they often know something is wrong before a single word is spoken. It's not magic, it's neurobiology. But here's the shadow side. Those same mirror neurons can drown you in an ocean of feelings you never asked for. Think about it. When someone cries, an empath cries too. When someone is angry, their nervous system lights up like a storm inside your chest. You don't just witness pain, you embody it. And the danger is, in constantly carrying the emotional weather of others, you can forget your own climate. Who are you when every day you're wearing someone else's sky? This is the first dark side of being an empath, the erosion of self. Over time, many empaths lose their boundaries. They say yes when they mean no, because they can feel the disappointment radiating from the other person. They forgive too quickly, because someone else's guilt feels heavier than their own hurt. They stay in unhealthy relationships, jobs, or friendships, not because they don't see the harm, but because they feel the other person's pain so vividly. Leaving feels like betrayal. But here's the paradox. While empaths are often celebrated as healers, listeners, and compassionate souls, the truth is, they are some of the most unseen people in the world. Why? Because when you're always the safe harbor for others, people rarely stop to ask what storms you've survived. They see the light you offer, but they miss the toll it takes to keep that light burning. And so the empath learns to smile while bleeding inside. There's a term in psychology called emotional labor. It describes the invisible work of managing not just your own feelings, but also the feelings of others. Empaths don't just perform emotional labor, they live inside it, and the exhaustion is real. Studies even suggest that chronic emotional overload can lead to higher stress, anxiety, and even physical symptoms like fatigue and insomnia. The body keeps the score, especially when the soul is overloaded. But here's the part that hurts the most. The very world that benefits from the empath's sensitivity is often the same world that dismisses it as weakness. You're too sensitive. Stop overthinking. Why do you care so much? Words like daggers that teach the empath to doubt their gift. They start questioning themselves. Maybe I am too much, maybe I should feel less, maybe caring deeply is a flaw. And that's how the empath begins to silence their own voice, not realizing that sensitivity is not fragility, it's clarity. Yet the dark side of the empath is not just about exhaustion or invisibility. It's also about attraction, because sensitivity doesn't just draw in people who need comfort. It also attracts those who take advantage. Empaths often become magnets for narcissists, manipulators, and energy drainers. Why? Because an empath's boundaries are often softer, and their compassion becomes a resource for those who seek power. It's an ancient dance, the giver and the taker, the healer and the exploiter. And unless the empath learns to draw lines in the sand, they risk becoming a reservoir drained by everyone else's thirst. But here's where it gets even more complex. The empath's shadow is not only shaped by others, sometimes it is self-created. Because when you care so deeply, you can become addicted to saving people. You confuse love with rescue, compassion with sacrifice, And slowly, your worth becomes tied to how much pain you can absorb for others. That's not empathy anymore. That's martyrdom disguised as love. Yet even in this darkness, there is wisdom, because the struggles of the empath reveal something profound about human connection itself. We are wired to feel with each other, to resonate, to mirror, to care. But there's a balance we must find between empathy and selfhood. Without it, the gift becomes the wound. The truth is, the world needs empaths, but it doesn't just need them to feel. It needs them to survive. And survival means boundaries. It means learning to distinguish your storm from my storm. It means realizing that sometimes walking away is not cruelty. It's self-respect. It means embracing that you can care without carrying, love without losing yourself. Because here's the secret. The dark side of the empath is also the doorway to their strength. When an empath learns to stand in their own center, they transform. No longer mirrors that reflect everyone else's pain, they become lanterns that guide others without dimming their own light. And that's when the gift becomes whole again. But we're not done, because this story goes deeper still. What if I told you that the empath's sensitivity isn't just an accident of personality, but an evolutionary design? And what if that design, once crucial for survival, is now both a blessing and a curse in the modern world? That's what we'll explore next. The hidden evolutionary roots of empathy, and why the very trait that once kept us alive is now one of the hardest to carry in today's world. Think back to the earliest days of humanity. We were never the strongest species. We didn't have claws like lions or speed like gazelles. What we had was each other. Survival depended not on muscle, but on connection. Those who could sense danger in the trembling voice of a tribe member. Those who could feel fear before the predator appeared. Those who could comfort and hold the group together. They became the lifeline of the tribe. Empathy wasn't just kindness back then, it was survival. But here's the twist. The same sensitivity that once kept us alive in small groups has become overwhelming in a world of constant noise. Back then, an empath might have felt the emotions of a dozen people around a fire. Today, an empath scrolls through a screen and feels the emotions of thousands. Wars, tragedies, heartbreak, suffering, all pouring into their nervous system, all at once. It's no wonder so many empaths today feel burned out. They are living with ancient wiring in a modern storm. This is the second dark side of the empath, overstimulation. When every headline hurts, when every stranger's sorrow becomes your own, you start to shut down. Psychologists call it compassion fatigue, the exhaustion that comes from caring too much, too often. It doesn't mean you've lost your humanity. It means your nervous system is waving a white flag. And yet, empaths rarely give themselves permission to rest. Because deep inside, many of them carry a quiet belief. If I don't hold others, who will? It's a noble thought, but also a dangerous one. Because no one human being was designed to carry the weight of the world. Even rivers overflow when the rain never stops. But let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that some of the most compassionate people you know are also the most wounded? It's not a coincidence. Research shows that many empaths come from childhoods where they had to be hyper-aware of other people's emotions to stay safe. If you grew up in a home where mood shifted suddenly, where love had conditions, or where silence felt dangerous, your nervous system learned early, I must sense everything to survive. That survival strategy became empathy, and while it became your gift, it also became your scar. This is the third dark side of the empath, the unhealed origin. The world praises you for being so caring, but it rarely sees that your empathy was born from necessity, not choice. And until you heal that origin, you might keep reliving it, overgiving, overfeeling, overextending. But here's the truth that every empath needs to hear. You are allowed to put down what isn't yours. You are allowed to rest without guilt. You are allowed to say, this feeling does not belong to me. Because empathy without boundaries is self-destruction disguised as kindness. Now let's talk about something rarely mentioned. The shadow of the empath is not only exhaustion, it can also be resentment. When you give endlessly and receive little, part of you begins to feel invisible, even used. You love deeply, but a quiet bitterness grows in the cracks. And if you ignore it long enough, it leaks out in passive anger, in silent withdrawal, in the ache of, why does no one see me the way I see them? This doesn't make you bad, it makes you human. Because empathy without reciprocity is not balance, it's erosion. But here's the paradox. The path out of the empath's darkness is not to feel less. It's to feel wiser, to understand that not every pain is yours to carry, to realize that protecting your energy is not selfishness, but strategy. And most of all, to embrace that your sensitivity is not a curse. It is a compass, but like any compass, it must be held steady, or else it spins endlessly, leading nowhere. Now imagine this. An empath who has learned boundaries doesn't stop caring. They care better. They know when to listen and when to step back. They know when to give and when to rest. They know that their worth isn't measured by how much they sacrifice, but by how deeply they live in alignment with their truth. This kind of empath doesn't drown in the sea of others' emotions. They become the lighthouse, shining steadily, guiding others without being swallowed by the waves. And that's the ultimate transformation. The dark side of the empath becomes the initiation into their strength, because when you've been broken by feeling too much, and yet you choose to rise again, you discover a resilience that is unshakable. You realize that your heart is not fragile glass. It is tempered glass, forged by the fire of 1,000 emotions. It bends, it holds, it reflects light even in the storm. So if you are an empath listening to this, remember this truth. Your depth is not weakness. Your sensitivity is not shame. Your ability to feel is not a flaw. But to thrive, you must also learn the art of release. Not every tear needs your shoulder. Not every storm is your battle. Not every silence is your responsibility to fill. Instead, imagine what would happen if empaths around the world reclaimed their power. If they used their gift not to drain themselves, but to inspire change. If they became artists, leaders, healers, storytellers, not because they carried the weight of everyone, but because they learned to channel it into creation. That is when empathy transforms from shadow into strength. And here's the final thought I want to leave you with. The dark side of the empath is real. Exhaustion, invisibility, exploitation, overstimulation. But the light side is equally real. Compassion, connection, healing, vision. The journey of the empath is learning to walk with both, to acknowledge the darkness without drowning in it, to embrace the light without burning out, to be both soft and strong, both open and protected, both feeling and free. Because the truth is, the world doesn't just need more empathy. It needs empaths who have learned to stand tall within their gift. Not martyrs, not mirrors, but lanterns. And when you step into that, when you embrace both your shadows and your strength, you don't just survive as an empath, you shine as one.